The incoming Group CEO of the new Nigeria Exchange PLC, Oscar Oyema, told me today that he will not be staying so long in that new position, which is set to take in due course as part of the transition of the Nigerian Stock Exchange into a demutualized business entity. And that was part of my extensive one-on-one with Mr. Oyema today as he explained the journey into a new future for the 61-year-old exchange and what it means for Nigeria, dealing members, issuers, and investors.
You know, when you look at exchanges around the world, they've really transformed. They've gone from being membership-based, the vast majority of them, and indeed the most successful exchange groups have gone from membership-based organizations to more corporatization, modernization, and really opening themselves up for shareholding. And a number of them have also listed on their platforms. What that has done is to really make them true businesses and to allow them to scale globally and to become more competitive. So what we've done, it's not really just an Oscar story, it's the story of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. The council, the National Council, the membership, everybody, after doing some deep thinking, came to the conclusion that we really needed to go in this direction. It would allow us to really achieve our aspirations. It would give us the platform to achieve our aspirations of being the premier exchange hub on the continent. It would allow us to provide appropriate corporate governance frameworks, similar to what you see with any listed company. It would allow us to become more competitive from a global competitiveness standpoint. It will allow us to better service the Nigerian economy, which is really the largest economy on the continent. The capital markets have to play their role in supporting that economy and driving the growth agenda of that economy. We also thought that it will allow us to democratize the ownership of the exchange by creating shares, allowing the membership, the current members, to get some liquidity, and also at some point when we list, to open it up to investors, not only domestic, international as well, so that you can have a diversity of ownership. That also gives us a currency to expand, have the appropriate capital allocation, be it debt or equity, and begin to do interesting things around inorganic growth. So a lot of thinking went into this to try to come up with a structure that works for our members, that works for the capital market as a whole, and that works for the Nigerian economy.
The Nigerian people and investors are interested in the Nigerian Stock Exchange, again by the name, because they're passionate, because, again, by the color, by the way. It's also the green colors of the country, which is green, white, green. But you're talking about the exchange being business and democratizing the whole process. In other words, this is the message that will have to go to the public, that the exchange is not just really a place where people go list their issues, but also it's as a business. How would you be selling this message moving forward from the past to the present and to the future?
To address your question, it is very important to, first of all, give you an understanding of the restructuring that we're doing as a result of demutualization. So the exchange is now going to become a subsidiary of a holding company that also includes other companies in a group structure. So the restructuring we've done now, we've now moved from the Nigerian Exchange to the Nigerian Exchange Group PLC. And under the Nigerian Exchange Group PLC, you have Nigerian Exchange Limited, which is the operating exchange. You have NGX Regulation, which is our independent regulation company to address conflict of interest issues. And then we have our NGX Real Estate Company to hold all of our real estate assets. That structure allows us to be able to operate in multiple verticals as we introduce new companies. It also allows the operating exchange to run as a business and pursuant to a regulatory services agreement, allows the independent regulation company to provide regulatory services to the exchange, therefore removing conflict of interest concerns. Now, what that then does is that it really allows us to move in an efficient way, to extract the network effect, to allow each operating entity to really contribute its own quota to the group in a way that we're maximizing efficiencies. So really that structure, it was important for me to describe that structure. Now I can take your question. Just repeat it again and then I can take it.
The idea is to sell this new structure to the Nigerian public.
Right.
This will be one task ahead for you because you're the one midwifing the former Nigerian Stock Exchange as a single company to be a group of companies.
Right. So the idea about selling it to Nigerians, I think really when you will know whether Nigerians buy into it or not is when you look back 3 years from now, 4 or 5 years from now, and you look at the ownership structure of the exchange group. How diversified is it? How many Nigerians own shares in this exchange structure? Today, on demutualization, there are 432 members of the exchange. When you look at the demutualization rules of the Securities and Exchange Commission, pursuant to the Demutualization Act of 2018, you will see that there are certain caps. So an individual cannot own more than 5% of the exchange. A group, so the members that we have today, cannot own more than 40%. And indeed, it also provides a sell-down provision over 5 years. The idea being that we want new shareholders to come in as we decouple ownership of the exchange from trading rights. So the shareholding is completely different from trading rights, which has now been restructured under our new rules that as part of the demutualization process. We are now moving into an open access model that allows new participants to come into the market, that allows for deepening of capabilities within our intermediary class, that gives them opportunities to participate in multiple asset classes, as you will see in leading practices across the globe. So we think that demutualization is good for us as an entity. It is good for our intermediaries, the broker-dealers, the issuing houses, the lawyers, the accountants, and all the other intermediaries. It is good for the capital market because it will provide an opportunity, an enabling platform for the capital market to take its rightful place in terms of financing the largest economy on the continent. And it is good for Nigeria because we will now be able to have access to multiple verticals in terms of the various services that we provide and across multiple geographies, so not just Nigeria.
In terms of the work that happened over the last 1 year, since March 3rd, when you did the special meetings, court-ordered meetings for the demutualization, and now we're at the transition phase. What happens during this transition phase? When does it end?
So our transition phase really, we're just when we announced the demutualization, we scaled all the legal hurdles, let me put it that way, from creating the law to getting a no objection from the SEC to getting a court-ordered meeting done, to going to the CAC and SEC to get additional no objections, to going back to the court to get a court sanction, and then finally going back to the CAC for the registrations and the SEC for the approvals, 4 major approvals. The approval for the holding, non-operating holding company. So the surviving entity, when you look at the demutualization from the Nigerian Stock Exchange to the Nigerian Exchange Group PLC. Then the licensing for the operating exchange, Nigerian Exchange Limited. The license for the regulatory company, NGX regulation. And then the registration of the shares of the PLC. So that brought us to the completion of the legal activities that we needed to do, and we called that legal day one, right? Now, between legal day one and operational day one, there are a number of things we need to do. We need to set up the leadership framework. So all the directors for the different companies that were approved in the court-ordered meeting and extraordinary general meeting that the XCC just recently approved have to be inaugurated. They have to start running. They have to be onboarded. Customers, our go-to-market, unfolding our go-to-market strategy, our rebranding for what we now call the NGX era. Looking at our staff, we need to reallocate staff to different companies. We need to do appropriate capacity. In fact, we've done a lot of that work, capacity recalibration and things like that. Financing. Our financial reporting structures and technology had to be upgraded. We just recently launched the new platform from a technology perspective, repositioning our technology from a physical perspective where people are sitting. So there's a lot of work going on, change management around restructuring during the transition period. And coming out of the transition period, we will now be running as a fully restructured entity with the various components running and the appropriate handshakes around SLAs for group services, transfer pricing policies, and things like that. So it's a whole restructuring program, if you will, that has been in the works, has been going on, and we're now bringing to fruition. So once we complete that, we say we're now in our operational day one, and then we're now running as a fully rebranded, fully restructured group that can then allow us to realize the benefits of demutualization.
I'm trying to structure this question very carefully, and the reason is this. You came in the first 10 years, and you took the exchange to this point. Then you spent your 10th year, which is a COVID-19 pandemic around the world, working with your team to give the stock exchange a new horizon. So I'm not surprised. We are growing a few more gray hairs than you were 10 years ago to become a group CEO. So that means you spent the 2020 period reworking the entire structure that you just talked about. So your next 10 years will be very, very critical. And I would say, how much work do you think you still have ahead for the next 10 years?
So let me say right off the bat that the exchange has been working on this structure and the strategic plans for demutualization since 2015. There was a lot of leadership by the National Council, a lot of interaction and consultation with the various stakeholder groups.
The future of the Nigerian Stock Exchange as a demutualized or public entity.